Good morning, Unity on the River. It's time to know that love is our decision. And so it is. Love is my decision. It's up to me to give up my heart. Love is my decision. No one else can tell me to start. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. Join us, it's on the PowerPoint. Love is my decision. It's up to me to stand on that bridge. Love is my decision. No one else can make me forgive. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. Take it up. Love is my decision. It's up to me to dance down that road. Love is my decision. No one else can lighten my load. Once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. My decision right here and now. And so it is. Good morning, Unity. And we've got the whole world in our hearts. And Barry Siegel is going to start us off and lead us in that. The whole world in my heart.
In us, we got the whole world. I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down, well, I feel so much better. Since I laid my burden down, well, I feel so much better. Since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Take it, guys. Thank you, Mary, all my teachers all along. I want to thank my transformation since I laid my burden down.
Everybody.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Let's try it, just for voices. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. One more. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Since I laid my burden down. Since I laid my burden down. Come on. Since I laid my burden down.
Oh, so please stand if you are able. Take the hand of your beloved neighbor and sing with us. Surely, surely, the presence of the Lord is in this place.
God's
Let us pray. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place, in the face, in the body, in the words, in the action of each and every one of us. We are the embodiment of Spirit. We are all that is made visible. And all we need to do is remember that, live that, transform ourselves through that, transform the world through that. This is who and what we are called to be. We are the transformation we seek. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen and amen. You may be seated. Good morning. Welcome to Unity on the River. If we've not had a chance to meet yet, I am Reverend Ogun, Senior Minister. Glad you decided to spend this really first chilly morning of the fall season with us. Let's keep each other warm with our love, with our connection, with our kind words, with the music by this amazing music team and choir. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. And also, facilitating with me today, Michelle Gallant. Thank you, Michelle.
Good morning, Unity. Such a beautiful sunny day today. We'll all stay warm here. So I'd like to first welcome our streamers. Glad to have you with us today. And we'd like to welcome anyone who is visiting with us for the first time. If you could please just raise your hand. Anyone? Okay, great. We have one here, over here. We're delighted to have you this morning, and we'd like you to know that the ushers are giving you a packet and a flower. The flower entitles you to 10% off in the bookstore, and the packet has information about our church and a little card you can fill out and leave in the Spiritual Resource Center at the bookstore. We welcome you. We welcome all paths to God. Please know that your presence here enriches us, and thank you so much for coming. Also want to remind everyone you can watch our services on YouTube at any time, and we also have all of our sermons downloaded onto a variety of podcasts, so you can just listen and get a little hit of Unity during the week whenever you need it. Unity on the River is a center of celebration, transformation, inspiration, spirit-centeredness, oneness, and joy. These are our core values. Please hold those truths in your heart as we say together our vision for ourselves and the world. Together, awakened to and transformed by divine love, we are an expanding, compassionate, inclusive beacon of light. We achieve that vision through our mission of, together, transforming lives and inspiring people to make a positive difference in our world. Few brief announcements. We have Soul Motion Conscious Dance coming up on Friday, November 8th at 7 p.m. Register now for early bird pricing, and that is a powerful experience if you'd like to come and move your body and open your heart and mind to soul. On Saturday, November 16th, Compassionate Communication with Gina Janess. Gina, are you here today? Gina? No, I don't see her. Okay. But this is level 2. It's a great class, so if you have any other questions, you can ask about that. It's at 9 a.m. on Saturday. And on Saturday, November 23rd, we're having a special event here. How many families have been affected by adoption? Anybody? Okay, so many people here in one way or another. I have a very special niece, and we are hosting National Adoption Day's Shining Star Extravaganza, which is hosted by the Child and Family Services of Merrimack Valley. Leslie Smith and a variety talent show and a raffle to win a trip to Williamsburg, Virginia for a family of 4, right, Elaine? And the raffle tickets are available in the bookstore if you can't make it to the event. But come and celebrate all that is good about adoption and all that is challenging about it. And now it's our time in our service to greet each other with namaste. I see the love in you in either a handshake or a hug. I see your beauty, I see your magnificence. Namaste.
Shambhala. Shambhala is a place in our hearts, and it reminds us that we are part of a great expanding vision of joy, peace, and love. And that's what Shambhala means in a Buddhist tradition. So we sing this song, The Great Turning, Shambhala. Shambhala. Sing that with us. Shambhala. Shambhala. Turn to your neighbors and turn to your friends. Turn to your families and kiss them and them. Turn to the earth and turn to the land. Turn, turn, turn again. In the great turning. The great turning. Shambhala, 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 Shambhala. Shambhala, 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 Shambhala. Turn to the earth and turn to the sky. Turn to your gardens and plant your corn high. Turn to the winged ones the animals call. Turn, turn, turn to the earth. In the great turning. The great turning. Shambhala, 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 Shambhala. Shambhala, 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 Shambhala. Turn to your heart and turn to your mind. Turn to compassion with insight and find. Turn to community, reach out to care. Turn, turn, turn and share in the great turning. Oh, in the great turning. Shambhala, everybody. Shambhala, Shambhala, Shambhala. Shambhala, 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 Shambhala. Bring it into your heart, Shambhala. Shambhala, 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 Shambhala. Bring it all the way in. Shambhala, 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 Shambhala. 2, 3, 4. Shambhala, 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 Shambhala. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
So we are in week 4 of our Adventures in Faith series with the 15 commitments of conscious leadership. As I've invited you to join groups, and if you are not in a group discussing the book together, at least get the book and follow it along. I've been hearing a lot of positive comments and feedback about the book and the work and the invitation that it is calling us up to really look at ourselves and how we see ourselves in the world. Is it, all right, is it on there? All right, so, my bad. So we revised or reviewed that this is our journey to lift ourselves above the line. The premise of the book is very simple. We're either living and leading from above the line or below the line. And the key is to, when we find ourselves that we've drifted below the line, to shift whatever got us there so that we can rise up above the line again. It's a very simple premise, but it's clearly not an easy one. It takes 15 commitments to do it. So therefore, there's some work to be done here. Last week, we talked about as we consciously communicate with each other, sometimes we do it from below the line, and we're in a place where we conceal the truth from each other. And then we have to shift above the line to a place where we reveal and start to own our thoughts and our feelings and our judgments and communicate them consciously and mindfully so that we can stay connected and, as a result, own our experience. But how do we get to the place where we may be having the thoughts and the feelings and the judgments that we either want to withhold or then step up to the challenge of sharing? How about the idea of, can we find a practice so that we don't get there in the first place? It is our thoughts and our beliefs and our judgments that get us there. So how can we transform those so that we're not in the place where we have to struggle with if we want to share or not share, conceal, withhold, put ourselves in that position? How do we do that? So I was really grateful this week for the read-ins because I'm not a big baseball fan. I know this is Red Sox country. I know it is. I'm not a big baseball fan. I come from Barbados. Cricket's my jam. But every once in a while, I'll tune in to a baseball game. And when I say every once in a while, it's only when it's the World Series, and it's only when the Washington Nationals are playing, because coming from D.C., lived in D.C. twice, if there's any home team that I can consider myself, I'm a D.C. fan, fair weather D.C. fan. So I was very excited the Nationals were playing. And I was following along, and it was, how many of you were following the World Series at all? Anybody? All right, 6 of you. Good enough. Good enough. Good enough. So for the rest of you, this was an amazing World Series because it's a 7-game series. It went 7 games. None of the games were won in the home team stadium. So basically every single game a team won, they won on the road. If you know anything at all about any sports at all, you know that that's almost an impossible thing to do. So it broke the record, okay? And so it was the Houston Astros playing the Washington Nationals. The Astros were up 2-0 No, it was the Nationals that were up 2-0 at the beginning, and they won those games in Houston. And everybody's like, all right, D.C., we got this. D.C., by the way, is a long-suffering sports town. Long-suffering. Things started to turn last year or 2 years ago, the Capitals won the ice hockey, the Stanley Cup. And then earlier this year, the Washington Mystics won the Women's National Basketball Association Championship for the first time. Looking at you, Wizards, do something for me. That's the men's basketball team. Do something for me. Anyways, so we were all excited, the D.C. fan group. And then Houston rolled into Washington, D.C. and won the next 3 games. And we were all like, oh, here we go again, D.C. We just can't save ourselves. Especially in Game 5, when there were some really controversial calls by the umpire that many blamed for us losing the game. And then I turned to page 227 and read this story that really speaks to this experience of conscious leadership and living. There were 3 umpires talking. The first said, there are balls and strikes, and I call them as they are. The second said, there are balls and strikes, and I call them as I see them. The third said, there are only pitches until I call them. This speaks to the experience we have about where we end up with our thoughts and our judgments because of our just need to assign a label and a meaning to something. We are, I like to call it, meaning-making machines. But when we lead consciously, and we live from a conscious place, we learn to be in the habit of questioning every label and every meaning we assign to a thing. Just like that last umpire in that story, the meaning of anything is what we give to it. Anything that happens and shows up in our life means absolutely nothing until we decide what it means, until we give it a label. And part of the labeling and assigning meaning comes from our ego's need to be right. And even if we assign a label and a meaning and realize the label and the meaning doesn't necessarily apply, we still want to be right about it. Remember, we talked about this last week. We talked about last week when we assign a judgment, a meaning, or opinion to something somebody says or does in our life, even if there's no real evidence to continue supporting it, we still keep looking for the evidence and make what we see fit into our paradigm. We assigned meaning, and we do that all the time. When we assign meaning, we're actually making a commitment to live below the line of believing our stories and the meaning we give to them as the truth. When we believe our stories and the meaning we give to them and call it the truth, we are making a commitment to live below the line. We're saying that everything has a right way, it's my way, and when other people don't agree with it, subscribe to it, and live it, that they're wrong. And sometimes we get angry. And it's when we get angry, we go in that whole cycle of, we talked about last week, concealing and withholding and separating ourselves and then projecting and gossiping. We get angry. So how do we deal with that when that happens? How do we transform the anger or even get to a place where we're not angry in the first place? There are a couple of ways we can do this. Here's one. I heard this story this week. There was a couple that was married for 60 years. 60 years. And to be married that long, you got to have some level of honesty and open communication. They didn't have any secrets from each other except one. The wife had a shoebox in the bottom of her closet, and she told her husband, for the whole time of their marriage, don't open the shoebox. And he didn't. To credit, he didn't. And then they found themselves at this point shortly after the 60th year anniversary where she became very, very sick and was terminal and she was fading fast and he was sitting beside her in the hospital bed and she said, go get the shoebox. I think it's time you saw what was in it. So he brought the shoebox and he opened it and he was a little perplexed. In the box was $95,000 of cash and 2 crochet dolls. And he says, I don't understand. And the wife said to him, when I first got married, my grandmother said to me, if I ever get angry with you, don't yell. Simply be quiet and knit a crochet doll. And the man was moved. He's like, there are only 2 dolls here. You mean in the entire span of our 60 years, you've only been angry with me twice? I'm so moved. But where's all the money coming from? And she goes, oh, that's the money I earned from selling the other dolls. Thank you. Speaking of people in long marriages, a little birdie told me that this week, Nan and Larry will be celebrating 53 years of marriage. There's Nan. Where's Larry? There's Larry. Our prayer chaplains, Nan and Larry, 53 years. Now, Larry, I'm not saying this is why Nan does all the crocheting that she does. I'm not saying that, okay? That's not what I want you to get from this story. Coincidence. I had this story before I heard about this. It was pure coincidence. But maybe she is. I don't know, Nan. I don't know. But that's one way we can deal with it. But I don't think that's the healthiest way, because she's not had that experience in the story of mindfully having the conversations and speaking to the anger and what got her there in the first place. So we have a choice to move above the line by a process called reframing. We have to reframe our stories. We have to reframe our thoughts and our beliefs. Professor Jonathan Haidt wrote a book called The Happiness Hypothesis, and he said reframing challenges our automatic stressful thoughts, and it's one of the keys to happiness. Reframing our story challenges our automatic stressful thoughts, and it's the key to happiness. And when we do it, we can feel a sense of well-being in a matter of minutes. In a matter of minutes. Can you imagine being triggered to anger and in a matter of minutes have it dissipate? Some of us hold on to anger for hours, days, weeks, months, years, decades, scores. Right? We hold on. But can you imagine reframing it so that in a matter of minutes, it's dissipated and we see things differently? When we can do that, then we no longer have this need to be right. We no longer have a need to disconnect from others. When we do this, when we reframe, we're now making a commitment to seeing that the opposite of our story is as true or even truer than the original story. And we also recognize that we interpret the world around us and we're the ones who give the stories meaning. This is what it means to live above the line in these situations. To see that the opposite of our story is just as true, if not truer, than the one that we're believing is right. So how do we get to this place? Here's the how-to, other than crocheting dolls. Here's the how-to. And some of you are aware of this already. But if you're not, we're going to talk about it now. It is something called The Work by Byron Katie, spiritual teacher. The Work. The Work is intended to get us to reframe the thoughts that we have in here before they bypass the brain-mouth filter and come out as harmful words or harmful actions. We've got to reframe. So the first thing we do is we have our story, whatever the story is. The book gives an example. I'm going to use the example in the book, I think. We have this story. John is unkind to me. Apologies to any Johns in the room. Just using the example from the book. So we have made up this story. John is unkind, or John is disrespectful. Okay, substitute John for that person or that situation in your life. John is unkind to me. So the first thing we do in the work is ask ourselves, is this true? Is John really unkind? to me? Is John really disrespectful to me? The answer is either yes or no, okay? We don't rationalize, we don't explain, yes or no. Is John kind, yes or no? If by asking this first question and you take the time to examine your beliefs and your stories, is it true, and you can say no, then you're sort of good. You can actually skip to step 5, which we can talk about in a little bit. But if you say, yes, it's true that John was unkind, then you go to question 2. Can I absolutely know for a fact that that's true? Can I absolutely know for a fact that John is unkind to me? Or is it that I have assigned that judgment, that meaning, that label based on that experience that we had? If you say, yes, I can absolutely know that it's true, go back to 1, go back to 2, until you can answer, no, I don't absolutely know that's true. And then ask yourself, 3, how do I react when what happens and when I believe that thought? This is what happens with you internally. Internally, what happens when I believe that thought? John's being unkind. Hint, go watch last week's talk or read the chapters from last week if you haven't yet. What we do is often, again, we conceal, we withdraw, we disconnect, then we project. And sometimes we even take that to the next level where we gossip and we start telling other people about how unkind and disrespectful John was to us. John is a disrespectful and unkind person. Yeah. Remember when he did that thing with you? And they were like, well, yeah, but that was him being disrespectful. And we make up this whole story to get the validation. Okay? How do I react? What happens when I believe that thought? Step 4, who would I be without the thought? This is often the most challenging step. Because who I would be without that thought is not right. Who would I be without that thought of John being unkind to me? I'd be not right, because I'm convinced that I'm right about this action, about this situation, and the meaning behind it. And I don't know about you, but when people ask, would you rather be right or would you rather be at peace? Most of the time I say, yes. I'm learning not to do that anymore. I used to think it was kind of like a funny, cutesy answer, but then I realized, yeah, I actually believed that. So now I need to let that go. But I'd rather be right or be at peace. We'd all rather be at peace. But our ego wants to be right. And who would we be without the meaning that we have assigned? We'd be not right. And then step 5, we do the turnaround. Okay? Let's break down the turnaround, because the turnaround is where the fun stuff happens. First, the turnaround, okay, we have the story. John is unkind to me. We do the opposite of that. Instead of saying John is unkind to me, now we say I am unkind to John. No, I did that wrong. John's unkind to me. We do the opposite. John is kind to me. John is kind to me. I'm a little out of practice with this. So the story was John is unkind to me. The opposite is John is kind to me. We do the other. Now we say, I am the one who's now unkind to John. I'm unkind to John. And then here's the big step. We myself it. I am unkind to me. I am unkind to me. Ask yourself then the question, in what ways have I been unkind to myself? In what ways have I been disrespectful to myself? In what ways have I been unloving to myself? When we myself the step. And then the final step is, how is this true or truer than my original story? So my original story was that John was unkind or disrespectful or unloving to me. Now, by the time I'm done with the turnaround and I've myself it, how have I been unkind, disrespectful, or unloving towards myself? And isn't that as true, if not truer, than the original story I made up? And now my journey is about healing that within myself. It's got nothing to do with John anymore. It's about me. That's the transformational work of how we reframe the story, the judgment, the opinion, because then when we do this, we find ourselves at a place of peace so that we can do healing around ourselves. Because when we do that, then we're no longer angry with John. We no longer have a need to be right. All we simply have is a desire to be whole. And that's what healing is, coming back to the recognition of our wholeness. So, there's no time like the present. Let's practice. We're going to practice this right now. And we'll take a few minutes to do this. This will be sort of in place of our meditation, but it'll be a meditative sort of experience. Okay? So let's do a little meditation, tinkling there on the piano. And I want you to bring to mind a story that you've made up. Now, as I said before, we're doing light practice right now. Don't start with a big tissue issue. Okay? Kind of keep it light for right now. Okay? In fact, one of the places you might start is maybe the story you've made up around where we are concerning the sale of our building. Maybe if you were in a place of still discontentment, confusion, anger around that, maybe we can start with that. Or if you're not, find something else. But think of that story, and what is the meaning that you've assigned to that? So if you're comfortable, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just spend a few moments selecting the story. Maybe some of you got a lot of stories, and a lot of labels, a lot of meanings around things, around interactions, around experiences, around people. Find one. Again, on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe find a 5 or 6 right now. And come up with a meaning that you've assigned to that story. And when you have the meaning, simply ask yourself, is this true? This is the meaning I've assigned to this story, to what happened. Is it true? And if you're holding on to the thought that it still is true, then ask yourself, can I absolutely know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it really is true? That the meaning that I have assigned to it is the truth. So it's not about the fact of what happened, it's about the meaning that I have assigned to it. Is the meaning that I have assigned to it absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the truth? And take a moment to reflect, remember, examine, maybe even now, how you feel, how you're reacting when you believe that thought, that meaning, that story that you've ascribed. Do you feel angry, sad, numb, resentful? We're not judging the feelings, we're simply noticing them. And who would you be without that story? Without that meaning? What is it asking of you to be without that meaning? Without that label? without the certainty that what you have made up about this is true. And then finally, the turnaround. The turnaround, in essence, is that story that I have, and meaning I have assigned to the other, to that situation, to that person, is truly a label I've assigned to myself. How have I been that to myself? How have I been to myself that very meaning and story, that label that I have put on another, that I have assumed about a situation? Because that is the only truth. The only truth that we can know beyond a shadow of a doubt is how we have been with ourselves. And the other truth is that we have the opportunity to heal that, to be the love to ourselves if we've been unloving towards ourselves. To affirm thoughts of wholeness and abundance when we've held on to thoughts of illness and lack. To be to ourselves all that we would seek and wish others were to ourselves. Any healing begins with loving who we are. So let us affirm, in all things, I love myself. In all things, I love myself. Let us take that into the silence for a few moments. In all things, I love myself. In all things, I love myself. We hold that truth, that affirmation for all the names in our prayer box, for all these prayer requests and concerns and prayers of hope, of healing. We hold that all these individuals remember the truth of who they are, divine beings, and that they have and they are all that they need to be to transform themselves and the situations around them. Should you hold that affirmation for anyone else in your life, I invite you to say their names out loud now. In so doing, we affirm that truth for them, and we affirm that we are that presence in their life. We are the example of conscious leadership and living that they seek in their lives and that we are called to be. And by loving ourselves, we begin the journey back to wholeness and holiness. And so it is.
I am holy, holy, holy. I am holy, holy, holy. I am holy, holy, holy. I am whole. Let's sing that again together. I am holy, holy, holy. I am holy, holy, holy. I am holy, holy, holy. I am whole. You are. You are holy, holy, holy. You are holy, holy, holy. You are holy, holy, holy. You are whole. You are again. You are holy, holy, holy. Everyone we see. You are holy, holy, holy. You are holy, holy, holy. You are whole. We are, as a whole world, we are. We are holy, holy, holy. We are holy, holy, holy. We are holy, holy, holy. We are whole. See the whole world whole and healed. We are. We are holy, holy, holy. We are holy, holy, holy. We are holy, holy, holy. We are whole. Now bring it back home to I am. I am holy, holy, holy. I am holy, holy, holy. I am holy, holy, holy. I am whole. And that's the truth. Amen. And amen.
Thank you, Ogun. Byron Katie's work is very powerful. She has several best-selling books, and you can get detailed worksheets that you can download on her website, thework.com. For free. So it's good stuff. I'd like to introduce our prayer chaplains, if you could stand. The chaplains are here to pray with you after service for gratitude or any kind of request that you might have. They will hold your prayers in the strictest of confidence. So please meet with them afterwards if you have a need. If you have a need for, or someone you know needs a home or hospital visit, we have chaplains for that available as well. Catherine's here and Nancy. So you can speak with them or call the office and they can help you arrange that. You can submit your prayer request in the prayer box at the back of the church. You can also call our dedicated prayer line that will take prayer requests, and our Unity prayer team will pray over your requests and send them over to Silent Unity at Unity Village. Now is the time in our service where we affirm our tithes and our offerings. So let us hold them and breathe into them our energy of abundance. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
As our ushers come to collect our offering, couple quick more announcements. After service today, it is the first Sunday of the month, so it is First Sunday Potluck. Thank you to any and everyone who brought something to share with our potluck today. Remember, first Sunday of every month, community potluck. Speaking of potlucks, we have a big one coming up on November 27th. This is the day before Thanksgiving. We always have a big Thanksgiving potluck here and open mic night. Keith, our guitar player, is coordinating that yet again. Thank you, Keith. And in case you aren't aware of the rules, all your acts need to be previewed before you get to perform them. Previews will be happening starting the 17th, Sunday after church on the 17th and the 24th. So if you think you want to do something for the open mic, whether it's sing, poetry, puppets, whatever, talk to Keith and please let him see your act. There will be no unpreviewed acts performed on Wednesday night, okay? You hear me saying it now. Please don't roll into the potluck on Wednesday night and go, oh, I just thought of something I could do. No. We gotta preview them. It's for everyone's safety. 2 Sundays from now, we'll be having our Sacred Service Fair here after church. Our Sacred Service Fair is where all the volunteer teams set up a little table, and if you're not currently on a volunteer or service team, you can come around and see what's a team you can get connected with. There is something for everyone. It takes a village to raise this child. You are the village. Come serve with us. Service is a perfect opportunity to connect with other people, get to know people, and also it's about giving from your heart. And as we know, those of you who've all taken the abundance class, giving is how we receive. Giving is the first step to truly realizing the abundance that we are. So this is a great time if you've been thinking, oh, I would love to volunteer someplace in my life, but I don't have the time. You're here on Sunday already. So that's half the problem solved. You're here. So there's stuff we can do before service, there's stuff you can do after service, during service, other days of the week as well. There's stuff you can do from home as well. All those podcasts that you can listen to on your phone, yeah, that's a team too. And the folks on that team, for example, they do that from home in their own time. So it's not even all things you have to do from here. So that's 2 Sundays from now. Hang out after church and see all the opportunities available. Let us give thanks for our offering now. One of those teams, usher in. You know, as you're already here. Just saying. So I invite you to go to that place of gratitude within your hearts. We give thanks for these gifts, whether they were given here, given online, however you choose to invest in your spiritual community. We give thanks. And we tie the portion of these gifts back into all the community services here in Amesbury area and also into the Unity movement so that we can continue to be in the flow. And so it is, and so let it be. Amen. Thank you. Michelle's got a few more thank yous.
As Ogun said, it takes a village to run this place and have everything happening. So I'd like to thank a few people. Everyone who helped with the gala, would you raise your hand? Everybody who had something to do with the gala. So thank you so much for whatever you did. It's, well, much appreciated. Particularly, you also want to thank Steve and Teresa and the teams we'd like to recognize this week. If you are on these teams, you can stand PowerPoint. And the podcast media person is already standing in the back. Do you have another member of your team now, Lynette? Is she here? Okay, but those are the two teams we want to recognize today. And any board members present today, if you could please stand. Our board members go above and beyond. This week, November 6th, our Wednesday night service at 7 o'clock will be with Reverend Ogun. So please join him for a quieter, meditative service. And now it's time for the really big song, and it's called It's Time.
Yes, it's time. It's also time to invite you to join the choir. We have this glorious choir, and we want at least 10 more bodies here for Christmas. So if you have any inclination that you would love to sing, we'd love to have you. Thursday night, 6:30, we'll be here, be square, and join us for the Christmas concert on December 13th. And there's also going to be a kids pageant too. So any parents who have children, just know that speak to Matthew, and he and I are coordinating rehearsal times. Okay? All right.
December 13th?
Friday the 13th.
That's all right. We'll buck tradition.
It's time.
Not till we're in tune.
Time to tune.
So I'm trying out this. I saw this guitar and I had to get it.
It's wrong. It doesn't have a round sound hole.
It doesn't have a round sound hole, and it's orange, but it has this lovely brass attachment on it, which you will never see an acoustic guitar with this on it. This is literally the first time they've ever done this.
It's a very sacred thing.
But it can do this. I don't know when I'm ever going to need to do that, but it can do it.
On a ship.
I have one other quick thing to say, too, is the strap that I have for this. I was in Wyoming like 5 years ago, and I walked by a saddle shop, and I've never been in a saddle shop, but I thought it was fascinating, right? There were literally people in there cutting leather and stamping and building saddles, and I thought, wow, this is incredible. And I was in love with it. I said, can you make a guitar strap? And literally, the guy looked up at me and went, I have no idea. He goes, what is it? And I go, well, I need a 4-inch wide piece. And he had things that look like guitar straps. So I go, well, it's like that, but a little wider, and it's a little bit longer. And he goes, well, go measure one and tell me what it is. He goes, and I'll make it for you.
All right.
And I said, okay. I go, can you stamp stars on it? Because everything I do has stars on it on my other guitar. And he was like, sure. And he goes, where do you want them? I go, randomly place them wherever you want. So I paid for it. That was while I was there, and I gave him my address, and it showed up 6 months later. Right? And it's this big strapping piece of leather here. And look how randomly placed the stars. Tells you what kind of guy I was dealing with. But I got it home and I realized I can't use this on my regular guitar because the way the holes are. And I was like, geez, if I only had a guitar to match the strap. So here it is 5 years later and I have the guitar. All right. It's my story and I'm sticking to it.
It's time.
It's time. Time for the dead and gone. It's time for the broken ones to live again. It's time. Time for the dead to rise. It's time for the wings to fly, to live again. I can hear the calling. I can hear the sound of rain over the mountains. Over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's time. Over the mountains and over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's time. It's time for the dead to sing. It's time for the walls to ring with songs of freedom. It's time time for the numb to feel. It's time for the wounds to heal with songs of freedom. Oh, I can hear the calling. I can hear the sound of rain over the mountains, over the valleys. I hear the calling, and it's time. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's time for the tide to turn. It's time for our hearts to burn with a desperation. It's time for a sacrifice. It's time that we paid the price for our generation. Oh, I can hear the calling, and I can hear the sound of rain. The dead to rise. It's time for the wings to fly. I hear the calling, and it's time. It's time for the numb to feel. Yes, it's time for the wounds to heal. I hear the calling, and it's time. Oh, it's time that we pay. Sacrifice. Oh, I hear the calling. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's time. Over the mountains, over the time. Over the mountains and over the valley, I hear the calling, and it's time.
And it's time to stay standing, welcome in our youth and family ministry, walking as the light.
We are one. We are one.
We are one.
Namaste. Stand in the presence. So I just thought I would share with you my own humor at what we actually do back there. So there's always art, there's always play. The fundamental intention is to create for them the space that we have in fellowship so that they want to come and be together. That said, we also did Metaphysics Part 0 and talked about mutually exclusive opposites and how to avoid the tyranny of or. And we also, exactly, very multidimensional at a very basic level. And we also talked about emotions and tried to broaden our vocabulary for emotions the way you might broaden your vocabulary for colors so you can recognize them and discern the differences between them. And if any of you want a little bit more information about that, we used a deck called Mixed Emotions that I can tell you more about. So, namaste.
I've clearly been too easy on you guys. Holy cow. Clearly, I got to step up my game. Thank you. And that's what our kids are doing. Y'all getting off easy. Let us stand, affirm the truth for ourselves, for these children, that there is, we affirm the peace on earth. It begins with us. Let there be peace on earth. The light of God surrounds us. We are the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. We are the love of God. The power of God protects us. We are the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. We are the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And we are richly blessed. Have a great week.